Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really chilling sequence of events. We're looking at this profound clash between modern, kind of reckless arrogance, and ancient, deeply rooted folklore. So let's set the scene. We start our journey at a desolate railway station in a place called Shivpur. It's the absolute dead of night. The wind is howling across this completely empty platform, and the darkness is just absolute. The only person around is the simple auto rickshaw driver named Mongol. And he's standing there desperately debating whether to wait for one last train or just hurry home to safety. And the reason for his dread? Well, that's exactly what sets our entire story in motion.
Okay, let's dive into this, because Mangle drops a warning that literally becomes the linchpin of our whole narrative. Two young men from the city, Rohit and Karan, step off that final train. They're out looking for a weekend thrill, a cool escape from city life. But Mangle immediately spots their vulnerability and hits them with a stark reality check. He flat out refuses to take them to a hotel, insisting they come to his home instead because, in his words, the night is just way too dangerous. But for Rohit and Karan, this warning doesn't sound like danger at all. It sounds like an invitation to an adventure. They completely miss the genuine, palpable terror in Mangle's voice. Now, to understand why Mangle is so terrified, we have to look at what Amavasya actually is. In local folklore, it's the night of the new moon. And complete darkness here isn't just, an absence of light. It is a time when the veil between the living and the supernatural is at its absolute thinnest. The village firmly believes that dark, powerful entities just roam freely on this night. So we've got this incredibly stark contrast right from the jump. A local man whose everyday survival depends on respecting these invisible boundaries, and two out-of-towners who look at these boundaries as nothing more than a fun little myth they want to bust. And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict we're exploring today. On one side, you have Rohit and Karan. Their mindset is completely rooted in urban arrogance. They dismiss fear, they're hungry for thrilling escapades, and they honestly just believe they're untouchable. On the flip side, we have Mongol. His fear isn't some irrational panic, it's a generational survival instinct. Over dinner, he even tells them a story about a villager who wandered near a ruined local haveli, which is a large mansion, and was found unconscious the next day right near its graveyard. But instead of taking a hint, this story just throws gasoline on the fire. It fuels the boar's arrogant desire to go explore the exact place they were just explicitly told to avoid. Let's trace how quickly their hubris takes over the situation. At 8 p.m., they arrive at the station. By 9 p.m., they're having a safe, warm dinner at Mongol's house, listening to his dire warnings about this cursed haveli. But fast forward to the next day, right up until 4 p.m. Despite an entire day of Mongol practically begging them to stay away, their stubbornness actually wins out. It's incredibly frustrating to watch, but they insist on spending the night inside the ruined mansion. Seeing that he literally cannot stop them, Mongol very reluctantly agrees to drop them off nearby. But he doesn't do it without laying down some absolute, non-negotiable ground rules. So Mongol gives in, but he effectively hands them a strict contract for their survival. 3 non-negotiable conditions. Number 1, do not go anywhere near the graveyard located just outside the haveli. Number 2, if you hear any crying, calling, or voices pleading for help, you ignore them completely. And number 3, the biggest one, under absolutely no circumstances, even if you hear a terrifying scream right behind you, should you ever look back. These aren't just spooky campfire rules, guys. These are the deeply ingrained survival tactics of the village. The boys nod along and agree, but as we're about to see, agreeing and actually obeying are two very, very different things. Mongol drops them off just as the sun starts to set. As the boys walk down this desolate, unpaved path toward the haveli, the whole atmosphere shifts. The normal sounds of the village fade out, and they're replaced by this biting cold wind and bizarre, unsettling bird calls. And then they see it. The ruined mansion looming out of the darkness. But what's truly unsettling here, and this is noted in the source accounts, is that the massive, heavy main gates of the haveli are already half open. They weren't rusted shut or locked. It was almost like the structure itself was actively inviting them inside. Finding the ground floor just completely dilapidated, they make their way up to an upstairs room that's still somewhat intact. By 9 p.m., they're eating their packed dinner by the faint moonlight leaking through the cracked walls. Exhausted from the trip, they eventually drift off to sleep. And for a while, the haveli is just wrapped in this heavy, almost unnatural silence. But then, right at the stroke of midnight, that silence is violently shattered. A loud, completely unexplainable animalistic noise echoes right through the walls, abruptly snapping Karan wide awake. Let's move to and see how this builds step by agonizing step into a total disaster. Karan makes a sequence of truly fatal mistakes, systematically breaking pretty much every single rule Mongol gave them. First, instead of staying put, he leaves the sleeping Rohit and wanders out into the pitch-black hallway completely alone. Second, he gets mesmerized by this grotesque, unexplainable painting on the wall that just fills him with a sense of dread. Third, his curiosity pushes him down a narrow corridor that has a direct view right into the forbidden graveyard. And finally, the ultimate mistake. He spots a mysterious white figure standing by a tree in the graveyard. Thinking it's just a scarecrow or some elaborate prank, he actively walks right toward it. So Korean steps closer, straining to use the pale moonlight to try and make sense of this white silhouette. He's rationalizing it, telling himself it's just the wind playing tricks on him. But as he steps within range, the figure turns, and the face that emerges from those shadows is so profoundly terrifying, so deeply unnatural, that Karen's body literally physically shuts down. His throat goes completely dry, his eyes widen in absolute horror, his legs give out right beneath him, and he just collapses hard onto the cold ground of the graveyard.
The exact fraction of a second Karan hits the ground, the quiet of the night is just ripped apart. A massive, bone-chilling laugh erupts. And it isn't just a sound in the air. It's a physical force. The laughter bounces off the heavy stone walls of the Haveli, amplifying and echoing with this deeply sinister energy. It makes it feel as though the entire ruined structure is just vibrating with malicious joy.
Meanwhile, up in the room, that deafening laugh jolts Rohit awake. His heart is immediately just hammering in his chest. He looks around the dusty, moonlit room and realizes, with that sickening drop in his stomach, that Karan's bed is totally empty. The whole atmosphere in the room has changed too. It feels heavy, suffocating. Panic instantly sets in. Where on earth did his friend go in the middle of a pitch-black, cursed mansion? Rohit scrambles out of the room, frantically whispering Karan's name as he searches through the empty, decaying corridors. He's checking the stairs, peering through broken windows, but he finds absolutely nothing. And then, slicing right through the heavy air, comes a sound far worse than that laughter. A piercing, agonizing scream echoing directly from the direction of the graveyard. Rohit recognizes the voice instantly. There is no doubt it's Karan. Rohit rushes toward the source of the scream, his own footsteps echoing loudly in his ears. He steps out into the freezing night air, looking out over the desolate burial ground. The suspense here is truly agonizing. He has no idea what he's walking into. So we really have to ask ourselves, as Rohit steps into that forbidden zone, what exactly did he find waiting for him in the dark? He finds Karan. His friend is lying motionless on the dirt, completely unresponsive. Rohit rushes over, grabbing him, desperately pleading with him to get up, telling him to stop messing around and just drop this terrible prank. But Karan is stiff. His eyes are closed, showing absolutely zero sign of life. Rohit's panic is absolutely peaking now. He's all alone in a graveyard in the dead of night with his unconscious friend. And then, the chilling realization hits him. He isn't actually alone. From directly behind him, Rohit hears it. That exact same horrifying, vibrating laughter from before. Now remember Mongol's third rule? Never look back. But human instinct is so powerful, right? Rohit slowly turns his head. Standing right there in the moonlight is an apparition clad in white, with long, unkempt hair obscuring its features. But what Rohit can see clearly is a deeply distorted, twisted smile that just exudes pure malevolence. The sheer terror of the sight drains every single ounce of strength from Rohit's body, and he instantly blacks out, sitting right next to his best friend. When dawn finally breaks, the horror shifts back to this sobering, real-world anxiety of the living. Mongol is waiting with his auto rickshaw at the designated drop-off point just like he promised. Minutes turn into hours. When the boys don't return, Mongol knows his absolute worst fears have materialized. He rushes back to the village, rallies a search party, and they bravely venture into the Haveli grounds in the safety of daylight. They find the boys lying in the dirt. They carry them back. Karan eventually regains consciousness, but Rohit remains in a deep, unresponsive state, completely and severely traumatized by what he saw.
So the crucial point is what happens upon waking. Karan is completely stripped of his city arrogance. He looks at Mongol, defeated, and admits, "I made a mistake. I took your warnings too lightly." He realizes that his desire for a momentary thrill, his absolute hubris in thinking he somehow knew better than generations of local wisdom, almost cost him and his best friend their lives. That fear is now permanently etched into his mind.
And that really brings us to the core lesson of this entire explainer. It is so easy to sit behind a screen, safe in our homes, and dismiss old folktales as mere superstition. But when you are actually standing there in the dark and a local explicitly warns you that you are crossing a line you cannot uncross, what do? Would you let your arrogance and desire for adventure override your basic survival instinct? Honestly, would you ignore a local's dire warning just for a momentary thrill? It's definitely a question worth asking yourself before you head out on your next adventure. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this chilling story. Stay curious and please stay safe.